Welcome back to another episode, the post Indy 500 qualifying pre 109th running of the Indianapolis 500 episode of Beyond the Checkered with Charlie and Kathleen. Again, I am Charlie Kimball. I have 10 Indy 500 starts under my belt. I am joined by my lovely wife and translator extraordinaire, Kathleen.
Hey, babe.
So we were talking about the qualifying weekend for the 109th running. We did a quick post-practice, pre-qualifying prep. I think that was Friday night.
Yeah, I think so.
Once again, we are recording here in our living room because our kids are asleep in our bedroom where we usually record in our podcast studio slash
sitting room
area.
Hopefully one day library area.
Yeah, library reading nook.
Yeah.
Before we start, actually, I personally want to give a massive shout out and thank you and appreciation to Delara, to PPG, to J Fry, and to the group behind the Safer Barrier for all they have done. J Fry championing the Halo, the aero screen within IndyCar, PPG investing in that, Delara continually investing in the safety of these cars, these racetracks, the Safer Barrier for years, because we saw
I think the Hans device too.
The Hans device, all of that. And a huge shout out to the AMR safety team, because we saw four massive, Kyle Larson got very lucky with his, 4 massive impacts. Kiffin Simpson, Marcus Armstrong, Colton Herta, and Scott McLaughlin, all in practice and qualifying from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When you're running speeds of north of 230 miles an hour, 232 mile an hour averages, 233 mile an hour averages on single lap speed, it is unbelievably fast. Things happen fast. Those crashes are monstrous. I was texting with people in Indianapolis as I was watching here at home and during tennis tournaments and all of the things I was doing to try and keep myself distracted. And there's
distracted from what?
From not being at the racetrack and not being in the race car for qualifying. There's just a pit in your stomach that forms when you see those incidents. Even when the drivers get out, give a thumbs up to the crowd, it doesn't ease right away.
No, it doesn't. And I know it's not my husband in the crash now, but like McLaughlin, Larson, they're both married. Herta's got a long-term girlfriend. I don't know about Marcus Armstrong and Kiffin Simpson, but they have families, they have loved ones that are there at the track. And that time from when the car hits the wall to when it stops, to when, if you're lucky enough to be on the radio, you hear them say, okay. And then that time to when you see them get out of the car is so long. It could be hours, and it's only minutes, but it could be hours. And I know how that feels. Charlie had a massive crash in qualifying at Pocono. I wasn't there. I was with my grandmother who was in hospice, and I was watching it on TV. And it was in car for your qualifying run, and you hit, and the world stopped. And I could not get my thumbs going fast enough to text the people at the track to let me know how Charlie was. And luckily we had an amazing team who let me know right away what was going on. But I mean, the time it takes between the hit the wall to when you know your loved one is okay is so long. And I always felt so much more comfortable knowing the safety team was there and they knew my husband, because it's the same group of people every weekend that go to the track. So they know your loved one. They know that Charlie has type 1. They know that there are different injuries and different things that each driver has dealt with, and they approach with that kindness and compassion every time.
And the fact that those 5 drivers are all in the race is not only a credit to themselves, to the safety of the cars and the people I mentioned at the top of the show, but a credit to themselves to mentally put themselves back together to go out and get it done for 4 laps.
Yeah.
But a huge shout out to their teams.
Yeah.
Right? Some of these are some from the biggest teams, right? McLaren, Chip Ganassi Racing, Andretti Global, and Team Penske, Marcus Armstrong with Michael Shank Racing as well. Like,
there were definitely some Ganassi guys in that garage helping rebuild that car.
There have been, but that's part of the Speedway.
Yeah,
that's part of the beauty and the elegance and the specter and the challenge of the Indianapolis 500 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. My dad worked in it for a lot of years, and we spent some time with him today, and it reminded me that there's this like grudging appreciation and respect and passion and love and disdain for the Indy 500 and the month of May and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway all at the same time.
But that's what makes winning it so sweet, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's what makes winning it so good. And I think Rossi's spoken openly about this, how he didn't quite understand what happened when he won his rookie season. And now he understands so much more what he was able to accomplish that first year. Yeah. And I think because he didn't quite, this is my analysis, not what he says, because he didn't quite understand what it was, I think he wants it so much more now after he understands how much it means.
Well, and I think, and I would argue, that qualifying weekend for the Indianapolis 500 is the single most stressful 48 hours or 36 hours from Saturday morning to Sunday night in the racing season, right? Over the course of qualifying weekend, ideally you do 3 runs. You do 1 run on Saturday to put yourself in the top 12. You do the top 12 run to put yourself in the top 6 and the top 6 run, right? That is 15 laps, 1 warm up and 4 at speed each run. That's 15 laps. That's not very much.
It's still more than any other qualifying.
Unbelievable stress as far as the length of the qualifying. But every single qualifying weekend, my fire suit smelled so bad.
I was wondering if you were going to mention this, and if
it's
you were
almost
comfortable
embarrassing.
mentioning
It's almost
it would
embarrassing.
Smell so bad. It was just this like anxious sweat. Like he didn't get sweaty, right? It's not enough to like make you sweat, but it was this nervous sweat, and it smelled so bad. He wasn't allowed to bring it in the RV. It had to stay in the garage.
The stress of that weekend, and then when you're not in and you're thrashing and you're just in the fight to try and find speed out of thin air, it's the moment when the Indianapolis Motor Speedway becomes a black hole of common sense. I remember, I will never forget this visual. I was sitting in the car because we thought we were safe, but we weren't totally sure. This is 2011, my rookie year. Mitch Davis was on the radio to me. We were sitting in the 83 car in the pit box. I was in the car strapped in, ready to go, tires bolted on. Like, we were ready to send it if we needed to. I think I ended up qualifying 28th that year. I watched Ryan Hunter-Reay's Andretti car, I think it was Andretti Autosport, maybe even Andretti Green Racing still at that point, roll down pit lane with 2 mechanics hanging off the back of the rear wing, trying to get downforce and drag out of the car for him to bump his way into the race. He didn't. Right? You talk about the list of names of drivers that have been bumped out and not qualified for the Indianapolis 500. Paul Tracy, James Hinchcliffe, Graham Rahal, Charlie Kimball, Ryan Hunter-Reay. Oh man, there's so many drivers from back in the day.
There was that year that Penske didn't make it.
Yeah, the year the whole team Penske didn't qualify. With the Mercedes pushers. So the stress and in those moments of super high stress, I think is when you see the true quality of people. And I want, having been in that position, knowing and still having the PTSD of not making the Indy 500, the composure of the drivers within the last row shootout. The composure of the drivers on Saturday that knew they weren't going to be in the race Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. 2011, I knew Saturday night I wasn't in the race.
Yeah, it was like the last two or three rows that weren't making it. Was a different qualifying
It was
structure.
11. Top 22 and then last 11 or whatever. 2021, I didn't make the race at all, so I knew going into the last row shootout Saturday night, and there's a depth of...
You were with Will Power for that last spot that year.
That's right. Yeah, it was Simona Di Silvestro, Will Power, myself, RC Enerson, I think, and maybe Jack Harvey.
I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
Was it Sage?
It might have been Sage Karam, yeah. And the composure continually of us, them as athletes is so cool to see. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm biased. We're biased. We love this sport so much.
I did text James after Herta's crash, and I was like, I hate that I love this sport so much because it's so hard to watch those guys crash. I also want to say one more thing James said to me after you didn't qualify, because it felt like the end of the world. It felt horrible when you didn't qualify.
In that moment, it was.
Yeah. And James came to me because he had not qualified a couple years before, and he gave me a big hug, and he just goes, "It's just a day." And I was like...
It was a pretty bad day, but it was just a day.
It was just a day. And I don't know. I love that place. I love the camaraderie that it brings. We've talked about it in a couple different forms here. The camaraderie of the wives and girlfriends and families when someone crashes. The camaraderie of understanding what it feels like to be on the last row shootout. And the camaraderie of when something goes wrong, how everyone helps. And like, IndyCar is such a family, and I can't wait to go see them.
I was going to say, we are headed there this week. We are recording, timestamping this. It is Monday evening. It's Tuesday morning in Indiana, but we will be there middle of this week. We will be there for Carb Day. Mm-hmm. I've picked up some work. I will be out at Lucas Oil Raceway Park for the midgets and the USF races Friday night. You will be having dinner with friends and neighbors. Saturday, we are doing some Indiana stuff, seeing friends and neighbors, catching up, going to a family dinner of a driver that we've been invited to kindly. I think we're going to bike to the racetrack.
Well, we also have my nephew's graduation to go to.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Our nephew is graduating high school and is following in the footsteps of Michael Kaltenmark and Ed Carpenter. I don't know if you've heard of him. He started on pole a couple times, the Indy 500.
Only when you cook him dinner.
Only, and the only driver and team owner in the series. Our nephew is enrolling in Butler with a scholarship this fall. Could not be more proud of that kid.
Way to go, Luke.
Yep. So big shout out to him. We're going to celebrate at his graduation party Saturday. And then Saturday night dinner. Sunday, we will do some of our traditions, get up and see our friends, bike to the track. I've got a little bit of work. I think I'm going to join Nathan Brown in the Indy Star, potentially for some pre-race viewpoints and perspective. And then we get to enjoy the greatest spectacle in racing. Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing. I think that's the coolest sign-off in radio.
And I think there's a key word in that statement, enjoy.
Yeah, we get to enjoy it.
I'm so excited to be there and to see our friends. We'll probably see more people on Carb Day just because race day is so hectic. But
I mean, but it's not like there's going to be a lot of people there. So we'll for sure find the people we want. Only 350,000 people. 1 out of every 1,100 Americans will be in Speedway, Indiana this coming Sunday.
And we're bringing a bunch of avocados.
We are. There will be some Charlie, Kathleen, home place avocados coming with us. And we are going to be delivering some to the number 83 garage.
Yes.
Because for the longest time, I drove the car number 83, because 1983 was Chip Ganassi's best finish as a driver in the Indianapolis 500, and he was driving a car that my dad had helped design. That was the history of the 83 when I drove it. 1983 was also the year that Prema Racing was founded. And as such, they run the 83 with Robert Schwartzman.
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard of him before, but after this weekend, everyone who's a fan of IndyCar racing, anyone who watched
anyone
IndyCar,
who's not even a fan of IndyCar racing. So if you listen to this podcast, you know I work in jewelry. We own a jewelry store. We took it over from my dad. And
as a reminder, tonight's episode is sponsored by George Thompson Diamond Company, America's most trusted name in diamonds. You can visit us online at georgethompson.com.
So there is a huge contingent of the diamond dealers that I work with that are Israeli. And one of them, who is my age, we have kids the same age. We have really connected. He and Charlie, I think, have mutual crushes on each other. He is from Tel Aviv, as is Robert Schwartzman. And I texted him to say, hey, I don't know if you heard, but there is a kid from Tel Aviv on pole for the Indy 500. I don't even think he knows what pole means. I know he knows what the Indy 500 is because he wants to come with us one time. But he was like, oh yeah, it's all over my social media. This guy who grew up in Tel Aviv, who did his 2 years in the Army and then came here and started working in the diamond industry. And God, I just love it. I love it.
And more than that, more than being an Israeli-born driver, he is a rookie, and the first rookie since 1983 to start on pole for the Indianapolis 500.
But the first new team rookie to start on pole.
Right. And we say new team. Prema is not a new team. No. I drove for them in 2008. Ryan Briscoe has driven for them. The list of drivers that have driven for Prema and Prema Power Team, I tell you, the best catering in the world I've ever had at the racetrack in a Prema hospitality suite. So I don't absolutely, the Italians know how to eat, but one of my mechanics was a crew chief on the 83 car. And it has been a stressful season. Let's acknowledge how hard it is to come into the IndyCar series and to step up and compete. And then they come in and they were in the conversation. They were in our conversation for the last row.
Not making the race, yeah.
Correct. And that was not a conversation they were in. They were in the top 12. And then they were in the top 6. And shoot, if he didn't go out and throw a 2:33 on his first lap and hold on to an average and start the Indianapolis 500 on pole, absolutely fantastic. Well done to Prema. Well done to Robert Schwartzman. He's been in the Ferrari junior driver program. He's been a reserve driver in the Ferrari Formula One program. He, for the first time racing on an oval, comes out and sticks it on pole for the biggest race in the world. Collects a prize money check of $100,000. Gets his photo taken holding that Israeli flag, along with Pato Award on the front row. The first Mexican-born driver to start on the front row of the Indy 500. Unbelievable. High drama, high intrigue.
Oh, and Taku.
And Takuma Sato, 2-time winner, middle of the front row. Great start. On the other end of the grid, the last chance qualifying, the last row shootout, included Marco Andretti, who lost a bunch of speed.
Who's been on pole there?
He's former pole winner. Marcus Armstrong, who had the massive shunt.
Which is expected. Someone with a big shunt like that expected to be in last chance qualifying. He wouldn't have been there if he hadn't had that shunt.
Correct. And then the 2 Dale Coyne cars. And earlier in the week, I was looking at their no-toe times, and I didn't expect them to be so far out of the window. And they didn't expect that. We heard that multiple times from both Renus and Jacob Abel in the 51 car. And I thought it was really interesting. In the last row qualifying, it's an hour session.
Yeah.
The first run, your only guaranteed run, if there's weather or something like that, you're only guaranteed one run. That's always going to be the best because the engine's the coolest. And yet we saw Jack Harvey knock his teammate Graham Rahal out with an engine that was melting down. It had done runs back to back to back. And I don't know how he did it, but he found the speed.
Yeah. This was not this year. This was last year.
This was a couple of years ago when Graham didn't make the race.
Yeah.
Now, when you go out to try again in the last row shootout, you automatically withdraw your time.
Yeah.
So Marco Andretti, Marcus Armstrong, the first two.
They put up decent times.
Yeah,
they were
competitive
strong.
times. Yeah. I think they'd have been in the conversation for the top 30 on Saturday. They then sit and wait. Rinus VeeKay in the race needs, I think, about a mile an hour to knock out one of the other two. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Marco. Jacob Abel, not faster than Rinus, so has no time because he's not in the race.
Mm-hmm.
With 7.5 minutes to go, Rinus pulls out of his box.
I want to point out how respectful that was. He could have waited.
Mm-hmm.
He could have waited with 3 minutes to go and gone out and put up another time and made it so Jacob did not have time
to rebut.
But he did not. He gave Jacob.
Well, and I would not be surprised if there was a conversation within the team. And actually, Dale Coyne on the live TV interview with Fox said, I think it was Kevin Lee asked him, well, what's going on here? Why is Rinus going out for a run and Jacob going out afterwards? He said, well, have you ever played chess against yourself?
With two queens.
And you have two queens and they both think for themselves. That's what we've got going on.
Yeah.
And I think that was, and Jacob acknowledged it in today's broadcast with the interview when he was up in the booth with the boys, with Will Buxton and James Hinchcliffe, Townsend Bell. He said, Rinus made the choice to go back out, withdraw his time, go back out, and try and knock one of those other drivers out.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he goes faster and I go out and I go faster, all of a sudden we've got two in. If he goes out, if I go out by myself, go faster than both of them, Rinus has no chance to rebut. Mm-hmm. So it was an extremely respectful move for Rinus to say, I've got to go prove that I deserve to be in this race. Mm-hmm. And he did. He was faster than Jacob Abel. They both went slower than their first runs. Jacob's still slower than Rinus. I think that team has some structural problems because the pace and the speed from Friday to Saturday fell off. Mm-hmm. Saturday to Sunday fell off even more. And I didn't get a sense that they found the pace when the boost came down and the downforce came back up in race traffic. So it's going to be a long day at the office for Rinus VeeKay. Should have been starting 33rd, but we'll roll off 31st. Because there was can I just mention one more thing about Rinus and Jacob? Yeah, before we get to that, I want to really put a pin in, and I've been there. It hurts. It hurts a lot. You think it can feel like the most painful day of your career as a driver. And it's just a day. I think, as James said to you that night, it's just a day. I
don't know Rinus super well. I don't know Jacob very well, but you could tell there's a lot of respect between those two and a lot of love between those two, because a smile did not crack Rinus's face when he knew he was in. He was maybe relieved, but not happy because Jacob was not in. And I don't think every driver on the grid would have had that same reaction.
It was one of the most tactful, classy, reserved, and he used the word bittersweet.
Yeah.
Interview I've ever seen from an athlete who has just dodged a bullet and made the biggest race of the year.
Yeah.
To say, yeah, I'm relieved to be in the race, but man, I hurt for Jacob, my teammate, my friend, good person. Beautiful. And Georgia Henneberry did an unbelievable job posing the question to Renus in a way to give him that space to answer it that way. Just a great job. And a big shout out. 37 hours of broadcasting. Live TV. It has been magic. They have done a great job.
Actually, Will Buxton, you would have never known he's never done an IndyCar qualifying before at the 500. The excitement and anticipation that he was able to generate from, as a play-by-play commentator from this booth, was so good. I mean, multiple times while I'm watching this broadcast am I getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that's because Will Buxton, I think, is just like genuinely so excited about what's going on. And it comes through.
I think he's got an IndyCar fever, and the only answer is more racing. More racing.
IndyCar fever.
He does. He's got a bit of a fever for it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great to hear. It's great to see. Now, before we get to questions, and then I'm going to put you and I on the spot with our top 3 and first car out picks.
Okay.
We need to address why Renus is not starting 33rd, but is starting 31st. So, and we'll get to these questions. There is a question about this logistically that came from our buddy Jimmy in Indy. During the technical inspection line for the Fast 12 qualifying on Sunday, the IndyCar technical team discovered a breach. They noticed what they thought was a breach on the 12 car. Later in the line, because they would go later in the order because they were faster on Saturday, they noticed a similar breach on the 2 car. Because the 2 car came after the 12, they had the time to read the rule and confirm that they felt it was a breach. As it went through tech, they had flagged the 12. And typically the way the process works, car rolls through tech, they measure it, make sure it's all legal in the boxes, everything looks good. They put a tech sticker on it, and as it rolls out, a tech official walks with it. One of the many suits that are up and down pit lane on race day.
The yellow suits you see, right?
Typically, yeah.
They're a lot of times standing in pit lane with like
the pit's closed, one to go, all the different signs that are additional information for the teams, for TV, for spotters.
They
that
are
sort of thing.
also standing with the cars as they start up on the grid.
Yes, they are the one. There's like one per row.
Yeah.
So they're typically walking with the car to make sure the teams are only making changes that are allowable by rule. Typically, traditionally, when I've been in drivers' meetings, when I've been in technical meetings, all of these things, those changes are front and rear wing angle and tire pressures.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
So when the 2 car rolls through, they read the rule, confirm it's illegal, don't put a tech sticker on it. Say that is outside the rule book. At this point, it escalates from tech inspector to chief of tech, Kevin Blanche, known as Rocket. From Rocket up to management, to race control, to president. They point this out to the 2 car crew chief, who's responsible for the car, and say your car is not past tech because of this. They also say the 12 car has the same adjustment that is not legal. It has not passed tech. It has passed tech. It has gone through the technical inspection. If it goes out and qualifies, it will fail post tech because you're not allowed to change that, and that's illegal.
And Doug Bowles said on the broadcast today, IndyCar reserves the right to remove that sticker or
that tech approval.
Yeah.
As such, the 12 and the 2 car did not run in the Fast 12.
They were not allowed to run in the Fast 12.
They were not allowed. Scott McLaughlin in 3 car, another car within that top 12 had crashed Sunday morning.
Spectacularly.
Oh my God, it was so loud and so heavy. Like, I felt that in my soul from California because that car was so fast. And that's what hurt him the most. You could see his frustration,
He's like, oh,
his disappointment.
I
crashed the car that could have been the fastest in the grid. So they were going to start 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I believe it was based on Saturday's times on how they were going to. So.
Well, I think Scott 12th because he had crashed. Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because in reviewing the rule, IndyCar decided to put the 2 and the 12 to the back of the grid because they felt that they chose to make that decision based on the presentation of the car for an official session outside of the rule book as written.
And the thing that they changed on the car, so we talked on a previous podcast about how you want the car to be really slick, right?
Yes.
Really aerodynamically slick.
You want to remove all those tiny parachutes of corners and edges and gaps in the bodywork that catch the air and create drag.
So there's a piece on the back of the car. It's called the attenuator.
Correct. It is part of the crash structure.
It is part of the crash structure of the car, and it is a spec part. It is required by IndyCar that it is there. It is part of keeping our drivers safe. It's part of the reason we have so many safe drivers. I suspect, because when cars used to back into the wall, there were a lot of broken backs. We have not heard of a broken back in a long time. So, well, except for Stefan. But that might just be because he's so tall. But so I have a feeling the attenuator is part of that. Am I correct?
The attenuator is a carbon fiber structure that's bolted to the back of the gearbox, the back of the crown wheel, the back. So any energy that impacts the car directly is absorbed in that carbon fiber piece rather than traveling through those stronger aluminum, magnesium, steel pieces and into the driver's body.
So it absorbs the crash.
So the driver doesn't have to.
So the driver doesn't have to.
Okay. Now that piece itself has a structure on the outside and the piece that extends out the back. The piece out the back is the big crush structure component. We say crash structure, but it's actually a crush with a U instead of an A because it crushes to absorb the energy.
Yes.
Now there are a couple of pieces closer to the attachment to the car where there is, I think, looking at it, and if I remember feeling it, it's about an eighth or a quarter sounds big, about an eighth of an inch step.
Where kind of the two pieces come together, right?
Correct.
Well, the 2 and the 12 car had filled in that crack.
And feathered it out.
And smoothed it out. So it kind of looked to me like you could have gone with some silicone and like caulked it almost. They kind of caulked it, right? Yeah.
So typically you use Bondo or carbon fiber putty, stuff like that, a resin. And that is why you saw these incredible scenes of blowtorches and chisels and grinding wheels on pit lane. Knowing it's outside the rule, but trying to find a way to be within the regulations to go run.
Yeah. So they filled that in with the idea, I would imagine, that it's going to make the car slipperier through the air. But since the spec part, you are not allowed to, per rule, blah, 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 you are not allowed to make changes to spec parts.
Correct. Now, having said that, IndyCar evaluated the crashed rear attenuator and rear wing of the 3 car from practice Sunday.
Scott McLaughlin's 3 car.
And it was not modified. Therefore, he was allowed to maintain his qualifying time from Saturday that put him 12th, which means once the 2 and the 12 are removed, he will start 10th. Everyone else slides up 2 spots.
Yes.
And Rinus VK's quote from post-practice or pre-practice press conference today may have been best. He said, if you'd have told me going into the week that I was going to be starting the Indy 500 next to 2 Penske cars, I'd have been really happy.
I didn't hear that today.
So great.
Okay, so Jimmy Maxwell sent us these questions. First, if Willpower passed Tech and Newgarden didn't, why did Tim Cindric pull Willpower?
So, yep, go ahead.
To the uneducated spectator like myself, it seems a bit unfair to Will. And this was sent yesterday at 3:00 Pacific. So like right before Fast.
So like during the Fast Six, right before the Fast Six, during the last chance qualifying. And he said he was trackside, so we didn't have all of the broadcast information that maybe we did. Plus, we've got a lot more information from Doug Bowles as president since then. Come out. So I think we sort of answered that in that Willpower was passed, and they put a sticker on it, but they were confirming that what the rule was, and once they confirmed it was out of spec and out of regulation and illegal, they removed the sticker and he would not have been legal.
Yes. So
despite going through the process, because it's logistically, you can't read the rule book every time you have a question in Tech because there's 11 other cars, right?
And you have to start
you have to do it in a half hour. There are a lot of other factors. So everyone's like, oh, why didn't they just stop and fix it then? Well, like you can't hit pause on time with a live TV window, with 30 minutes till this session, with all of this other stuff going
on. Okay. So the rest of the questions don't have anything to do with the Penske situation. I can say it feels very dramatic and there's a lot of really, really angry people.
From team owners to drivers to mechanics to engineers.
And I think accelerating this anger is that it's not the first time that Penske's been caught cheating. It's not the first time Joseph Newgarden has been caught cheating.
And I want to say very clearly, as a driver, I had nothing to do with the build spec of the car, right? If you showed me and said, okay, this is the car, same seat, same belts, this is the setup, this is what we're doing, and one attenuator had that gap filled and one didn't, I'm not sure I would have noticed it, and I am very detail oriented. Mm-hmm. So I think as a driver, I believe it is more accurate to talk about it as the 2 car and the 12 car.
Okay. Well,
having said that,
Tim Cindric is missing the race as the 2 car strategist again for cheating. Second year in a row.
And Ron Rosensky as well.
Yes.
Off the 12 car.
Yes. And that to me indicates that there's a culture that finding gray area and capitalizing on it is okay in the team, and it hurts my sense of fairness. And if you were competing in this sector at this time against these drivers, I would be livid because you don't know what else they're doing to be winning championships and winning Indy 500s. I think I'd be more angry if they were winning the championship as well. But, Palou.
There's Alex Palou.
So, but, what were they doing last year when Joseph Newgarden won the 500 and the year before? There's a lot more questions in my mind about the fairness going on.
When Lance Armstrong was caught doping, and he was never actually caught, he came out and said, look, this is why I did it. He said for a long time to maintain his innocence, you can't prove a negative, you can't prove a 0. But after 2 positive results, it becomes more than just a mistake. It becomes a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard on the broadcast today, it opens way more questions than it answers.
And I think what complicates all of this is that Roger Penske owns the series and the team.
Yeah.
And
the racetrack.
And the racetrack. If I'm Roger Penske, I am not Roger Penske. It would be important to me that we follow every rule by the letter of the law so that this question is not a question.
And there have been calls since Roger bought the track, the series, to have an independent officiating arm to adjudicate situations just like this.
Yeah.
I think more information will come out this week. I think a better understanding. There will be answers. There may be more questions for every answer are given as fans, as insiders, as supporters.
I guess we're insiders, but that feels weird to me.
Okay. As fans.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no other word for it, is there?
No. Anyways, okay. So that is why the 2 and the 12 will start 32nd and 33rd.
I think it's going to make for some great racing.
Yeah, Joseph's got one of the best cars out there. He could make history as the first driver to three-peat and the first driver to win from the last row.
We've talked about my sense of fairness, and I just don't think that's very fair.
Question number 2.
Number 2. We're leaving Penske behind for now. How much do different driver teams share info data and help each other? How is it that Graham Rahal hasn't had pace at all and Sato's in the Fast 6? I don't expect every car from a given team to be on the same level, but it's a huge disparity from the top 6 to 30th.
It's massive. And I tell you, Graham's got a monkey on his back about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and has for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I think cars are built very similarly. And remember, the 75 car of Takuma Sato crashed.
Yeah.
In the open test. They rebuilt a whole new car.
Mm-hmm.
As far as sharing data, good teams, it's an open book. And it's more than an open book. It is collaborative. And they work together to make each other better. Less functional teams have less ease of sharing data.
And Rahal is one of the few teams you've not worked on and within, so we don't know what the culture's like over there.
But I do know a lot of the people over there. I know Jay Fry. Yeah. He is a get it done, work together, make it better together kind of a guy. Mm-hmm. From football to NASCAR to IndyCar, just like he's a change maker and a change element right away. I think he's still learning team members' names and is going to have an impact on that.
Okay.
What do I think about the difference between a top 6 car and a just squeaking in on 30th? You build momentum up, you build momentum down. Yeah. I think Takuma is a 2-time winner and truly believes in his pace at that track and his ability. And man, with the hybrid era and the extra weight in the back and the way the cars are wagging at the tail, Takuma's no attack, no chance kind of works. Graham is known to drive the car a little more on the front, where he turns in a little early, asks the front to do a little more at the exit of the corner. With all that weight driving it straight, maybe that doesn't work.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe it's a bigger problem.
Yeah. I mean, we hear him on the radio all the time complaining about the car and how it feels and how much is it driver and how much is it car. And I really like Graham. I don't want to point any fingers. But do you think he's maybe spooked himself, or?
I think there's a mental thing there for sure.
Yeah.
Having not qualified and then been like, I think, since we were teammates, I think Graham's really grown up and grown into his role as a professional racing driver.
Yeah.
I have seen that time and time again. And I think there's something about, especially this evolution of the car with the aero screen and with the hybrid weight, that is not conducive to how he is prone to drive that racetrack. You talk about guys that are really good at that racetrack. Elio Castroneves, Mr. Four-Time. And his hands, you could paint all the cars all the same color. Everyone wore the same color gloves and helmets all the same color. And I could point out, at least when I was up in the spotter stand years ago, I could point out Elio, Scott Dixon, and Dario Franchitti and Tony Kanaan every lap because of how they drove that racetrack. It's 4 corners, and by geometry and distance and radius and banking, they're all the same. And that is a lie. They are 4 very different corners, and how you drive it from turn in to apex to load to exit to arc. There's so many words to describe how you drive that racetrack. And how you drive that racetrack successfully changes based on the car. And the car has changed a lot since Graham started in it.
Yeah. Excuse me. I need to yell at our dog. I don't know if you can hear her licking her paws over here.
I'm going to mute this while you...
I think she had her eyes. I think she was asleep and licking her paws.
Well, we've since yelled at her. She's since stopped. Sorry for the interlude. Last question.
Okay. How different are the setups from this weekend to next weekend? So qualifying weekend to race weekend. I know there's a difference between no toe and toe speeds. What specific adjustments will team make to prepare for traffic?
Everything. I mean, there are teams that put race engines in. Some are saving them for Carb Day. The Hondas put their race engine in for Fast Friday. Suspension length, so wheelbase. The distance between the front and the rear wheels, there are different suspension options. So you can shift the weight distribution. You can shorten that wheelbase. You can lengthen that wheelbase for more stability, for a faster turning. You change wheelbases. You'll put uprights on the car that only last for qualifying weekend. We talked about doing 5 runs. You take them off and you rebuild them after that. For the race, it's got to last 500 miles.
Yeah.
You change the turbo settings to get the right boost, and that includes different springs and hydraulics and programming and things like that.
You do gearing differently?
Oh, gearing, absolutely, because all of a sudden...
Maybe even your whole gearbox?
You might change your gearbox as well, because it may... The gearbox you ran for qualifying may be optimized to start cold, get hot, and survive 5 of those, 6 of those, maybe 8 of those runs.
Would you think I was weird if I said that I kind of miss the smell of gear oil?
Yeah, terribly.
In the car.
There's so much sulfur in gear oil to keep them from oxidizing that it's so bad.
No. I miss walking in the truck and smelling gear oil.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that gear oil is not the scent I miss. So you also change the gearing ratio, because when you have high boost, you have more torque out of the box, out of the pit box onto the racetrack. You also don't have a warm up and a cool down lane. You also don't do starts and restarts in qualifying. So you change the gearing so that you can do a start and a restart with the right gears. You can launch out of the box and get up to 60 miles an hour.
Do you do anything different with the brakes, knowing that you're going to have to brake into pit lane when you're maybe going a little faster, whereas like during qualifying, you kind of coast in?
Yep. So in qualifying, you typically run, there is a minimum size of brake, and you actually, one of the tech items, since we talked about tech so much this episode, one of the tech items is you have to stand on the brake and stop the car with the brakes to make sure they are functional. But you run thinner brake pads and thinner brake discs, less rotational inertia, less drag. Like you just, but in the race, you need enough brakes to use them on track and use them to come in off 4 aggressively into pit lane. We saw today Robert Schwartzman squared off the right front dramatically, trying to get the car rode down.
You could see like
cords.
Yeah.
The fabric. Yeah. Cords on the inside.
Yeah.
So you change almost everything. The tub stays the same. The engine stays the same. The hybrid probably stays the same. There's some teams that don't change the weight distribution. The wings likely stay the same. The floor stays the same. As far as a driver, the installation in the cockpit for the driver should be almost seamless. Yeah. And you run way more downforce. Yeah. So you adjust the ride heights for that.
Yeah.
You're not going as fast.
So the car's more stuck onto the racetrack a little bit.
Yep. Because you've got to do 32 laps in dirty air.
Yeah.
Because you may, in clean air, you have way more downforce, but in dirty air, you may have less than you do in qualifying. Okay. All right. Time to put up. Time for your picks. I want 3 drivers in any order for the top 3 and first out.
Okay.
And when I say first out, I don't want to throw down on drivers and be like, oh, they're definitely going to crash, because I think there could be a mechanical failures.
Yeah.
It's the first time running the hybrid. This whole sequencing of the month of May is the first time that the hybrid has lived through that. It could be a mechanical issue. It could be, hey, they rebuilt the car. They ran some laps. It was great. And something popped up or fell apart after carb day.
Or they looked really loose today or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so I think Pato has a really good shot. He may be like, I really, really want Scott Dixon to win. 1, because I love him, and 2, because he's won 6 championships and only won the Indy 500 once in 2008, and I think his career deserves it. I think he's had some bad luck at the 500, and I think he deserves it. But I want Pato to win because he's finished twice. These last 2 years, he's finished second. And his engineer, Kate Gunlock, is a gem of a human. And I want her to be the first woman to win the Indy 500 as a lead engineer.
So we got Pato, Dixon.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't think I can count out Palou.
Palou, okay. Who do you have for first out?
First out.
And for those that maybe don't go to the race, this is a very classic.
Yes.
As tradition,
yes.
Families often cut the lineup out of the Indianapolis Star.
Yep.
Put it in a hat, and as part of the pregame ritual, as you're making your way to the track, or you're parked in someone's front yard and you're having breakfast before you walk into the racetrack, you draw drivers.
This is randomly.
But yeah, and you get 4 drivers randomly.
Yeah.
And you get paid out for first, second, and third, and first out.
Yes. I hate picking this one. Can I just pick it out of a hat?
Yeah, here's a hat. Okay. Pick it randomly out of a hat. Who do you think? Mine's kind of random, so pick a name. There's no justification. You got to pick.
You pick yours, and then I'll think about it some more.
Okay, so I like all your picks. You said Pato, Dixon, and Palou. I like Scotty Mack. I know he's in a backup car, but when you've got Simon Pagenaud on your radio all month long, there's that expertise. Scott's proven he cares and he wants the 500. He's run up front. So He has a good car. He has a good team. Despite all of the distraction of the last couple of days, I think he will just focus on the job at hand. I think Simon is a huge asset to the Thirsty Threes. So Scott McLaughlin's my first pick. Dixon's my second.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
not that he listens, but Dixie's going to hate that we said this because he's going to think we jinxed him or something.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it's our fault. Sorry, Scotty. What else did I have on my list? Who else I thought looked really good? Ha! Kind of a wild card, but how awesome would it be to see an American flag branded number 14 for AJ Foyt Racing and Santino Ferrucci win?
Mm-hmm.
Helps that I've got a few friends on that car and they would go absolutely insane working on that car.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, it would be so much fun. But also Santino's got a Great Dane, and for those that are tuned in on watching this on YouTube, our Bailey dog here is a Great Dane, and so I think she would be a Santino Ferrucci fan. First out, I'm going with Kyle Larson for no reason other than the fact that he had a great year last year, has some confidence, raced the All-Star race Sunday night.
We talked about this today, didn't I?
With the double, he might just get a little anxious to get it done. The weather looks great for race day, so he's not racing rain. And he might just get a little anxious, dive into 2 or slide job into 3, and just get caught out early in the race.
We did say this today. He was during practice today. He was kind of slide jobbing a little bit. And my comment was, you might be able to do that. You have to do in dirt track racing, and it's common practice in NASCAR, but I don't think you can get away with 250 laps trying to do that around the speedway.
Yep.
I think that's a good one.
And I've got a wild card pick. Will Power from the last row.
God, I'd love to see that.
First driver
he deserves
ever.
It so much.
I know. First driver ever to win from the last row.
He deserves it so much. I'm going to go with Hollywood. Jack
Hollywood.
Harvey's going to be the first out.
Harvey. For no reason.
Other than I think it's really hard to be a one-off there.
Yeah, that's fair. You miss the cadence. And that's maybe part of the reason why Larson's felt good to me, is being a one-off, being, despite being with a good team, there's a cadence when you're racing every weekend, and it catches you out.
And, he hasn't started 3 wide all the time, right?
Yeah, yep.
Starting an oval race is hard, and yeah.
Well, so we have our picks, we have the grid, we have practice. All we have left is carb day, pit stop competition, some travel to Indiana for us. If you listen to the show and see us at the racetrack, stop, let us know what you think. Good, bad, ugly. Let us know any questions you want us to answer.
And please send us your questions. I find it really fun to answer them. So please send Charlie has great perspective.
I don't know. I have a perspective. I don't know about great, but I have a perspective. So we will see you, as they say on the IMS radio network. Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. When we do this show next week, we will have another Indianapolis 500 race winning champion to talk about.
And happy race week, babe.
Happy race week. Let's go.